Hello! Welcome to the Polyglot Files. My name is Michael and today we're doing another episode of Languages of the World! Recently, I did a poll on my website, www.thepolyglotfiles.com, where I asked you, the viewers, to vote on the next episode of Languages of the World. Even though India won last time, and you can check out that video over here, I decided today that I would do a video on Spain, which was the runner-up during that poll. If you want to vote on the next episode of Languages of the World, check out my website. I'll leave the link in the description box. Okay, let's get started. That was kind of creepy. I'm not gonna lie, I'm really tired today. I started school last week. It was my first time back at school. You don't care. It's fine. And I'm still sick. This is really annoying. While Spain has only one official language, Spanish, there are still a number of co-official as well as recognized and regional languages spoken in the country. But before we look at all of those languages, let's look at the elephant in the room: Spanish. Spanish is spoken by 46 million people, or 99% of the Spanish population, as a first or second language. Spanish is a Romance language, and like other Romance languages that we've talked about, like Italian, French, and Portuguese, Spanish evolved out of Vulgar Latin in the 9th century. Back then, Spanish was known as Castellano, which was a name taken from the dialect of Spanish spoken in the powerful Kingdom of Castile. Even today, according to the Spanish Constitution, Castellano is still the official name for the Spanish language. In fact, Spanish is given this name in Article 3 of the Constitution.
El castellano es la lengua española oficial del Estado. Las demás lenguas españolas serán también oficiales en las respectivas comunidades autónomas.
Throughout its history, Spanish has been influenced by a number of neighboring languages, such as French, Portuguese, Leonese, and Catalan. But more curiously, Spanish has also been heavily influenced by the Arabic language. Following the Umayyad conquest of Hispania starting in 711 CE, parts of Spain remained under Islamic control until 1492 CE, and Arabic was spoken on the Iberian Peninsula throughout all of that time. Today, traces of Arabic remain in the Spanish language, and it is estimated that there are over 4,000 loanwords in Spanish that come from Arabic. These include
aceituna,
from the Arabic word meaning olive, as well as the word
laúd,
from the Arabic word meaning lute. Even the famous Spanish exclamation
olé
is thought to have come from an Arabic exclamation meaning by Allah, but that link has never been proven. Further, Spanish today is truly an international language. Because of colonization, Spanish is spoken throughout the world. In fact, Spanish is the third most spoken language, with 570 million speakers, native and second language speakers combined, and it is the primary language of over 20 countries. I myself have never actually studied the Spanish language, even though I know that I kind of should. But if you're interested in Spanish content, I do have a pretty close friend of mine and fellow YouTuber named Azrin the Language Nerd, and I highly suggest you check him out. In fact, Azrin is a language enthusiast and he is way more active on social media than I ever will be. He currently is studying 8 languages, I think, and he has a goal to be fluent in all of them up to a C1 or C2 level by the time he's 40. And yeah, this entire shout out is just basically for me to tell you that you should go check out Azrin the Language Nerd. He documents all of his language learning progress on his YouTube channel, as well as other useful tips that will help language learners like yourself. Anyway, I'll leave his link up here, or down here. Maybe both, everywhere. His link is everywhere. Anyway, where was I? Oh, Spanish. In addition to Spanish, there are also a number of other languages that are spoken in Spain. The most spoken is Catalan, also known as Valencian, spoken by about 5.1 million people, or 17% of the Spanish population. Most of these speakers live in Catalonia, the Balearic Islands, and what is known as the Valencian community. According to Ethnologue, Catalan has a lexical similarity of 85% with the Spanish language. However, more surprisingly, it has a lexical similarity with Italian of 87%. I already did the Can I Understand Spanish video, but maybe I need to do a Can I Understand Catalan? Despite Catalan's relatively high lexical similarity with Spanish, there is actually a considerable amount of debate as to whether or not Catalan and Spanish are mutually intelligible. Seeing as I don't speak either of those languages, if you speak Catalan or Spanish and you happen to know whether or not you're able to understand the other language, definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below. Interestingly, even though there is a relatively low number of speakers of Catalan in comparison to other languages like Spanish, there are actually two different standards depending on what community you live in. The first is regulated by this institution, and the second is regulated by this institution. This is because there is a standard for the two different dialects of Catalan, the Catalan spoken in Catalonia and the Catalan spoken in Valencia, more commonly known as Valencian. These dialectal differences amount to mostly accent differences and minimal word choice differences, and these dialects remain very highly mutually intelligible. The third most spoken language in Spain is Galician, which is a language spoken by 2.4 million people, or 7% of the Spanish population. Galician is spoken mostly in northwestern Spain and along the border with Portugal. Because of this, Galician and Portuguese are very similar languages. They have a lexical similarity of 85%, and there is a fairly high level of mutual intelligibility between the two languages. In fact, it is even theorized that Galician is not actually its own separate language, but rather it is a dialect of Portuguese. And the only reason the two languages are given different names are for political and cultural reasons. The final most spoken language in Spain is Basque, which is a language spoken by 2% of the population, mostly in the Basque country, as well as the chartered community of Navarre. The most interesting thing about the Basque language is that it is a language isolate. That means that it has no linguistic connections to any other language that we know of, whether those languages are living or dead. There have been some suggestions that Basque may in fact be linguistically related to the Celtic languages or even the Caucasian languages that we spoke about in the Languages of Russia video. However, none of these links have actually been linguistically substantiated. Basque is most famous for being what is known as an ergative absolutive language. That means that Basque treats subjects of an intransitive verb as an object. What the heck does that mean? Let's look at an example. In the table on the screen, we have two different sentences. The first is, Martin has arrived, where arrived is an intransitive verb and does not take an object. In this case, we would assume that Martin is the subject because he is the doer of the action. He is the one doing the arriving. However, the second phrase reads, Martin saw Diego. As with the first sentence, we would assume that Martin is also the subject because he is the doer. He is doing the seeing of Diego. Despite this, these two subjects are being treated differently. In the case of the first sentence, the intransitive sentence, we get no case ending, which denotes the absolutive case. And in the transitive sentence, we get the ending ek, which denotes the ergative case. So in summary, these two sentences are treating their subjects differently, depending on whether they're preceding a transitive or intransitive verb. And this is a distinction that does not exist in nominative, accusative languages such as English. In addition to the major languages of Spain that we just spoke about, there are also a number of smaller languages spoken in Spain, many of which are endangered. For example, we have Asturian, which is spoken by 110,000 people in Asturias in northwestern Spain, as well as its brother, Leonese, which is spoken by about 40,000 speakers and is often seen as a dialect of Asturian. Next, we have Aragonese, a language spoken by 25,000 people in Aragon in northern Spain. Lastly, we have Aranese, which is a language spoken by about 4,700 people in Catalonia that is a variety of the Occitan language spoken in France. Alright, this has been another episode of Languages of the World! In addition to Azran the language nerd that I spoke about a little bit earlier in this video, I also wanted to give a shout out to Antonio, which is somebody who helped me with the Languages of Spain script today, and he also provided some of the voiceovers for the video that I used today. Thank you. Don't forget to check out my social media, as well as my website, www.thepolyglotfiles.com. Remember, you can go there to vote on the next episode of Languages of the World. As usual, thank you for watching the Polyglot Files, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!